trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
Let's get into it, folks. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Eminem's double album greatest hits project, Curtain Call 2. Now, this basically just came out in August 2022 and is basically a send-off to everything that Eminem has done in recent years since the release of Relapse back in 2009. Now, the thing about it was that was in between a hiatus that he took between that and Curtain Call, which dropped in 2005. Curtain Call 1 was the greatest hits of everything he had dropped up to Encore. So basically, a little bit smaller Curtain Call was, but it definitely was a top-notch and classic album. Everything that was executed on that project was just damn near perfect. And years later, the album wound up going diamond, which is basically one of the best certifications that an album can get. Not just a rap album, but an album in general. Like, that's in the era of, that's like up there with albums like Thriller by Michael Jackson, Adele's 21 and 25, and like Metallica's The Black Album, and like probably albums by the Beatles and those type folks and so on. But Eminem has done it at least 3 times with Eminem Show, Marshall Mathers LP, and Curtain Call. So it seemed natural that we would get a sequel to Curtain Call, just to kind of see, with all the debate these days about which Eminem is actually best. But I will have to say that this project, you would think, because there's kind of, it's up in the air. Eminem's newer stuff is kind of divisive in a lot of ways, so you would think that this would be an underwhelming project, and it's not. I'm going to go ahead and say that the 34 songs on this project is not going to get a 10 out of 10. It does have an emotional balance that kind of showcases that for folks who have messed with Eminem for as long as you have, it's kind of a heartwarming experience to kind of listen to these songs and just see how far Eminem has kind of come and where you were when these songs were kind of happening and that type of stuff. So he picks songs that have an emotional kind of spark in them, but the quality of these songs, when you're not paying so much attention to the experience behind it, kind of lowers the value of the project. So that's definitely kind of the thing. There's a number of songs from Recovery on here. That's probably the most popular project that shows up on this. Recovery is probably the most popular project that shows up on Curtain Call 2. I mean, I feel like Marshall Mathers LP LP2 gets all the singles, but for the most part, it really feels kind of like greatest hits of like Recovery. But there's other stuff on here, but you just have to kind of understand that Eminem, he's kind of going for like the moments that are kind of more like triumphant and kind of like connecting, and in some cases, a lot of cases, wrenching. So it's just kind of the situation as far as trying to describe that, to say, hey, were you around back in 2009 and 2010 when these songs were coming out? What did you think in that kind of context? And, you know, to that end, I do feel like the connection behind it is pretty stellar. But unfortunately, some of the later moments, while even if the spark and what their intention kind of is might be there, unfortunately the quality of them just really detracts from it, just because some of the stuff that Eminem kind of did in like the revival era, especially Kamikaze was kind of mostly flop-ish, and Marshall Mathers LP2 was very underwhelming in retrospect. There's just a number of points. I'm going to describe a lot of this. It's probably going to be a lengthier review, but just to kind of say that some of Eminem's albums from this era are very kind of backwards and just not as engaging as like albums like Slim Shady LP, Marshall Mathers LP, and like Eminem Show and Encore, and even 8 Mile. So it's just kind of, that's something to pay attention to. But once again, I have to say that these songs just have a lot more like not so much bravado, but just kind of like wholesomeness. They just have like a certain kind of cast feeling that you kind of get something more meaningful from it. So to not like these songs, it's kind of underneath the impression where, you know, it looks like the moments may not connect, but Eminem has really improved as far as making meaningful songs, and just being able to say that even if I myself don't like this project as much as I like Curtain Call 1, it still goes to showcase that there's going to be folks who are going to like songs like Higher by, you know, from Music to Be Murdered By, and they're going to like Not Afraid, which I did like that song, and just songs like that and Phenomenal and some of these and You're Never Over, which are kind of, you'll see what I'm talking about, where this is kind of very much like a meaningful and wrenching kind of project. But just to kind of say, like, it draws down to opinion, just because I admit that some of these pretty much are greatest hits, but it's just kind of the concoction that I was kind of hoping that Eminem would have loosened up a bit. I mean, it really seems like he kind of took the angle, his kind of stoic and kind of more soldier kind of angle, a stoic kind of escaping soldier from recovery, and then heightened it by like 8, 9 or 10, something like that, just to kind of be able to say it just feels like a super pill that kind of got Eminem back on his recovery vibes and like his Not Afraid and You're Never Over type vibe. But it's just to kind of say, like, Relapse is really lacking on this project. There's no We Made You or Old Time's Sake with Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre is barely on here. And there's no Shady XV on here, so I would have liked Guts Over Fear. There are some hits that are missing, but it's really kind of lacking on like the jovial kind of club type moments and kind of moments where you'd cruise around in a vehicle, and just a lot more carefree kind of atmosphere. It feels like it has something to say and kind of like optimism. So just understand that. But we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. So I would have to say that the first single was King and I, and I'm gonna have to say I didn't really like this song. I couldn't really get into the production at all. It just kind of had like a more kind of country-ish and kind of more Marshall Mathers LP2 kind of rock rap in a bad way kind of vibe about it. I mean, I know that Eminem on a song with Elvis affiliation is not going to be something that's kind of like In the Club by 50 Cent, but I kind of feel like it kind of was an odd pairing that I'm not so sure if I would want songs in that kind of context very often. I mean, I didn't mind it on Recovery, but it just seemed like extra kind of like who's like made like almost Willie Nelson, but kind of more Bob Seger tinged in a lot of ways. Kind of, if you like Bob Seger and that type of stuff, this kind of in that sort of aspect. Like if you take Kid Rock and then make it like 60% more country, that's probably what you'd have. I wasn't really too appreciative of that. And then from the D to the LBC, I've talked about this song in the past. Like I talked with this song about with Jackal Goldkick and stuff. And initially I didn't like this song, but I appreciate it more now just because I didn't realize how haunting the song kind of was as like a smoking song. I mean, I've forgotten about smoking, but the concept behind it is this is a pretty haunting and just overall shrill and kind of chilling song. As far as smoking and that type of stuff. Eminem even admits it on the song, and it's kind of, I definitely feel like it can kind of, it's definitely a trippy song. It's trippier than I would have expected, and it's interesting to kind of get that vibe, because Snoop Dogg still smokes, and it's interesting to kind of, Eminem and Snoop Dogg have not been on a song in over 20 years, so for them to retouch bass and stuff, and Eminem to be reminded, I mean, he hasn't smoked since like 2008, Eminem, so to kind of say, hey, I haven't seen you in 20 years, how you been? That, I mean, it's a decent kind of reconvene on there. I mean, I really, the stuff with NFTs is kind of, I didn't appreciate too much, but I do kind of see for like smokers out there, this can be a really haunting kind of song, and I've just forgotten about that. We definitely need more songs from Eminem and Snoop Dogg. I feel like they owe us like at least another 2, 3, 4, or 5, something like that. I don't think the next collaboration we get from them should be like, in 2026 or something. I would say, they need to step on it and get more of these going. But I do appreciate that as a smoking song. And then I would have to say the other new song, I'll go ahead and talk about it. It's not really a single, but I'll still go ahead and talk about it, is the Is This Love with 50 Cent. Now, this really felt like an unreleased song. This felt like a song that wasn't just unreleased, but it also felt unfinished. I'm not so sure if that's the case, but it sounded really like kind of half-baked in a lot of ways. I felt like this was not, it was kind of undercooked in a lot of ways. And Eminem went in and redid the lyrics, which I wish he would have left it the way he was talking in 2009. I mean, there's a lot, I feel like Relapse kind of got the shaft this time around, just because I think Eminem himself is not too big a fan of that project. But the thing about it is it really kind of feels like, I mean, 50 Cent did outstanding on like the verse on here. I like this point in the song where he's like, if you survive, you'll get hit. You'll see what the gauge do. I kind of thought that was pretty dope that 50 Cent had the nerve to say that after shooting him. If you survive, I'll shoot you with this kind of thing. It was pretty dope that he said that. But I also kind of thought that the beat, if that was a Dr. Dre beat, that was kind of an underwhelming one. I felt like Crack a Bottle is way better. Old Time's Sake, which is not on here, is way better. So many of the beats, I mean, it's just odd that even when Eminem is trying to find unreleased songs that he did 13 years ago, he can't find beats that were as good. It's like, I don't know how Eminem's ear for production got worse. I don't know how a person makes a transformation where their ear for production gets worse. I mean, it's fine that his lyricism is still intact, but I don't know why he can't find a beat like Hello from Relapse or Stay Wide Awake, and why he just has lost the radar for such a thing. It's just extremely strange to me. I don't know if he's purposefully doing it or what, but I really would have preferred the original Eminem, and we could have just gotten a song from the vault the way it was supposed to be. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about this in two angles. So I'm going to talk about this album in the songs that I enjoyed, and then I'm going to switch it up and talk about the songs I didn't enjoy, because I wound up liking 18 songs. You know, there's 34 songs, so on disc 1 there's 18, and on disc 2 there's 16, which is ironic because there were 18 songs I liked and 16 songs I didn't like. So it's kind of a little bit more than half. You'll see what the score is, but I'll go ahead and list the songs I did like, and then we'll talk about those. So the songs I recommend to you would be Nat, Crack a Bottle, Fast Lane, No Love, Best Friend, Spacebound, 3 AM, Not Afraid, Won't Back Down, River, Love the Way You Lie, Darkness, Farewell, Survival, Phenomenal, Rap God, From the D to the LBC, and Lighters. So we'll go ahead and talk about these. So I still have a pretty poignant preference for Nat. Like I said, that's a great kind of just calm Eminem, and he just tears that song apart. It's just so mellow and kind of like a slow burn kind of song. I still appreciate that. Crack a Bottle is a classic collaboration with Dr. Dre and 50 Cent. Great bravado-filled song, great ode to drinking and that type stuff. I definitely miss songs that did that kind of sort of thing. Fast Lane is a great track with Royce da 5'9", and so is Lighters with Bruno Mars. Even though Lighters is more pop oriented, I still feel like having a collaboration type song in the recovery sense, from because that's kind of where Eminem was making recovery era stuff, just with Bruno Mars on there and Royce da 5'9". So that worked pretty well. Fast Lane was a real hype song. This is definitely what the album needed, way more of, a songs like Fast Lane and Crack a Bottle. It's kind of what I was looking for. Fast Lane has a great hook. Royce da 5'9" keeps up with Eminem and is able to tear the song apart. No Love with Lil Wayne. This is kind of an odd song just because it was such a strange spot, just because Lil Wayne had an outstanding verse, and I like them sampling Hadaway on there. Just a great sample on how that sort of song worked. Did that real well. They both tore the song apart. Beautiful hook on that song. Best Friend, which is actually a Yellow Wolf song. I definitely feel like Best Friend was a pretty outstanding one. I definitely like Yellow Wolf's verses more than Eminem's, but it was just because Yellow Wolf had the sing-songy verses down. He kind of did like the Drake thing on there, and Yellow Wolf, seeing as he came up with that song, was just really clever. Definitely like the beat on there, just a real kind of country rap kind of song. Spacebound was pretty good. It's an underappreciated single from Recovery, and I really like the hook on there. Just another kind of rap rock, country rock, rap rock, country rap kind of song that works pretty well. Just pretty mellow and spacey. I definitely feel like it's just something that Marshall Mathers LP was trying to do, but Recovery just did it way better. 3 AM is a vicious horrorcore song. It kind of feels like an odd duckling on this album, just because there's really nothing else like it. I mean, Eminem really kind of has like a very small dab of Relapse on here, and this is just the complete oddball out of the whole album, just the fact that this song was even on there. But it is classic Relapse. Not Afraid is a great lead single by Eminem, and it's actually, I like this song better than Lose Yourself nowadays. I mean, Lose Yourself has kind of become a parody just because, you know, for folks who are still getting turned up to Lose Yourself. I feel like Not Afraid is kind of like pretty stellar. It definitely it just reminds me of Walmart music, that type stuff. Won't Back Down is a nice. I feel like Won't Back Down is kind of like pub and night venue kind of music, where somewhere you'd be out and you're just at a bar smoking cigarettes, something like that, like a diner or some place where you'd hear music. This nice kind of rap rock kind of vibes, and Pink does a good job on the hook. She does pretty well with that. River is basically the only song off Revival I liked back in the day, but I just feel like it's appreciative. I like the beat on there, kind of this real somber sounding and that type stuff, but it's awkward just because Eminem was trying to bring back recovery vibes with Revival. But this is really the only song, in my opinion, where he pulled it off. Love the Way You Lie. Really, I forgot about this song. I don't think I liked this song in my recovery review, but I appreciate it just because it's a pretty wrenching. This is one of the wrenching songs I'm talking about, where it's pretty wrenching in the sense of just being a real kind of relationship song that just sounds really sorrowful. It's just a different. This tore up the summer back in the day when this song came out, but it's just so kind of like, it feels like death is in the air or something. It's just so somber. It was weird. It was strange how well Eminem kind of channeled that kind of distraught kind of energy from some scorned relationship or something. It worked well. Darkness was from Music to Be Murdered By. And this was another good one, him talking about one of the shooters that attacked in like 2017, which that shooter killed a lot of people. So for Eminem to make a song about it, but it's just a very dark song. This was, I guess when I said that 3 a.m. was kind of odd, this is another song that's like 3 a.m. And I like Eminem's kind of chorus. I really felt like he had a real sing-songy chorus that worked better. I mean, initially I think I said I didn't like this song as much, but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But I do appreciate just the sheer kind of cloudedness of this song and how brooding and moody it kind of is. And I also like Farewell. There were some songs on here that I liked from Music to Be Murdered By. Farewell just had a real kind of off-putting vibe. I don't know if I liked this song when I reviewed it, but I definitely appreciate it now. And it's just kind of a halfway party, just kind of a mellow kind of score of a party that just felt strange. I liked it. Survival was one of the few hits I liked from Marshall Mathers LP2. It was basically like Won't Back Down, was kind of similar to that in a lot of ways. Phenomenal surprised me just because this felt like a song where you were kind of going through it and you were having problems, but you got to get back up. And Eminem hasn't really made a song like that. I mean, at least Lose Yourself was just facing your fears, and Not Afraid was kind of standing up and getting ready to do stuff. But Phenomenal felt like maybe you took a loss, something like that, but you're like, hey, I'm back in the ring and this is how it's going to go. So I like that. Rap God, I kind of forgot about. I think I said in my review I didn't like it, but it is a decent song. I could definitely see it being as a good drinking and party song, which Eminem definitely needs more of. And I talked about From the D to the LBC. And then Lighters, like I said, is just a good pop rap kind of recovery era song with Royce the 5'9" and Bruno Mars on there as a bonus. So yeah, now I'm going to talk about like the songs I didn't enjoy, and I'll kind of go in on that. So Walk on Water still is one of the worst Eminem songs. I just feel like the chorus was pretty bad and it just had nothing good going for it. I don't know why Eminem chose to make this song. It was kind of like him relinquishing the crown, but it didn't seem to make sense because up to that point he had not really dropped bad music. I mean, Southpaw was decent. I feel like it wasn't outstanding, but really in terms of his studio albums, the only real blunder he had kind of made was just Marshall Mathers LP2. So it's just strange that he was kind of pensive and fretting over himself, but it was just an odd and kind of bad song. I don't like Headlights. I mean, I know he needed to make amends with his mother, but this was kind of an awkward. This is another burying song that I talk about. I don't see that as one of his greatest hits. It may have been like a poignant moment for Eminem, but I feel like he probably could have pulled it off in a more interesting way. Godzilla, I have not really ever liked this song. I feel like it's just a little too much of like TikTok music and kind of like for like the youngins, the seeds and that type stuff in terms of like just Call of Duty, playing Call of Duty when you're like 10 and 11 and that type stuff. I really just didn't like the watered down beat on that song. I felt like Eminem could have easily found a better beat. I mean, Juice WRLD has an outstanding hook. Juice WRLD definitely knocked it out of the park, but I'm just really surprised that it couldn't have been a little bit something, because Eminem used to have such a stellar ear for production. But Cinderella Man, this is another song that was just kind of to me. I mean, I feel like it was just kind of an awkward song to make a song like that. I don't know really where that song came from. It was kind of an awkward way about it. It just felt kind of like a goofier song, and kind of Eminem on kind of some of his Relapse, kind of an encore vibes, but he was actually being serious. So it just didn't make a lot of sense. Like, it just felt like kind of an odd song, and kind of where would you listen to it? It just felt kind of homely in a lot of ways, and homely Eminem, not so much a fan of that. Kinda, the Monster was like a worse version of like Love the Way You Lie. I feel like Love the Way You Lie was just better. I mean, Rihanna did a great hook on here, but I definitely kind of feel like the lyrics were just kind of, it was just too much of like bringing it back and wholesomeness and coming full circle, and like a way of like Eminem being off drugs, kind of like another nail in the coffin as far as like the Relapse and encore era Eminem and that type stuff. And it was just like, I kind of feel like I wasn't. I mean, it was a decent hook from Rihanna, but I mean, the hook was good from Rihanna, but just for Eminem to be off drugs and just kind of making it poignantly clear that he's just kind of done with that, it just kind of felt like, I don't know, he probably could have transferred that hook into a better, kind of more interesting kind of single and that type stuff. I didn't like Higher. I talked about this earlier this month, but I wasn't too big a fan of the song Higher from Music to Be Murdered by Side B. I think he should have went with Killer instead. That would have probably had more poignant energy. That was the kind of Eminem I was looking for, but this just kind of felt like an anthem, or another anthem that was supposed to get you hype and stuff, and really it was just kind of, I would have to say I wasn't too into like the energy as far as that goes. I mean, Eminem's starting to get pretty good about getting like these get you amped kind of songs and just kind of get you motivated and that type of stuff, but more times than not, a lot of these just do not really go off that well. And I didn't like Lucky You, and some of these I'm just going to kind of skim through. I felt like the production was not quite interesting enough on Lucky You, and it's the same thing with Fall, where I felt like some of these were just kind of more of a bitter Eminem, and like they just felt like kind of more trap Eminem that I don't really want to see him go back to. It's the same thing with Venom. Like, none of the songs from Kamikaze I really enjoyed. I mean, at least there was one from Revival, but none of the songs from Kamikaze I really felt inclined to enjoy. And Kamikaze is a particularly bomb of an album that just did not have a lot going for it. Eminem was trying styles where people complained about the stuff he did on Revival, and then he just did it again, and then people hated that album too. And that was kind of the thing there. Kings Never Die, this was another one that was trying to really seem like, okay, this is do or die. This is kind of Eminem's do or die moment, and I didn't really appreciate that kind of energy to sit there and say for folks where it is do or die in that kind of moment. It was just kind of another song like Higher that just didn't quite connect. I talked about why I didn't like Is This Love. I still am not a fan of Beautiful. I remember this is one of the few songs off of Relapse Refill that I didn't enjoy. I feel like it's a pretty wrenching song in a lot of ways, but I just kind of think that it's a lengthier song, but I feel like Eminem was kind of going over the top on the song, and it was just kind of strange how that energy just kind of was cast out of nowhere as far as that kind of went. It's just like, I mean, I know that some of those songs are warranted, but yeah, some of these moments you're going to find they just kind of happen, and it's just odd because Eminem is just kind of out of the blue, it's just kind of, I don't know. I mean, considering what Relapse was about, just a drug overdose and getting back to being on drugs, it just kind of felt like Beautiful was kind of the strange one on here where Eminem was actually sober and in kind of like his recovery era Eminem, and it was just strange to kind of get that as far as kind of seeing, it just didn't, it kind of didn't fit the context of Relapse. Nowhere Fast, I didn't really enjoy. I mean, this was a makeshift Eminem song, and this is an example of where he didn't really pull off the vibes he was trying to give from like revival. He was trying to be like Ed Sheeran, like a rap version of Ed Sheeran or someone like that, you know, like G-Eazy or people who were kind of doing that at that time. But G-Eazy is just better at doing like makeshift rap. It's not a subject that Eminem really had to do because people disliked Eminem for songs like The Real Slim Shady and Without Me and those kinds of moments. So hearing Eminem on kind of like a makeshift song just was kind of, I really did not like the beat. I mean, I can understand some folks liking it if you need to hear Eminem at your job. You want to listen to Eminem, but you have like a blue collar or white collar job, and where you listen to music, you may hear music at your job, but you're not going to hear like Eminem for the most part. So this is kind of a blend of trying to do it, but I just felt like it could have been better, could have been an easier beat. I mean, you will hear a song like Love the Way You Lie, but if it's been, you know, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years since you've heard any new Eminem on at your job place, it's kind of like Eminem at least attempted to do it. You're Never Over is kind of a clumsy tribute to Proof. I mean, I think this is another wrenching kind of song, but I didn't really like the rock rap tinge towards it. I mean, I know it's important to Eminem. This is probably a very important song to him, but I wasn't too big a fan of it. I still don't like Berserk. I felt like the rock rap on here was pretty bad. I mean, it was just him being spastic and kind of ADD like, but I didn't really appreciate just the randomness. I mean, you would think that I at least like Eminem's energy on the song, but the production is just so bad that it's just kind of a pill to listen to in a lot of ways. And then I talked about the King and I, why I didn't like that. So that's the basic concept of a lot of these, is just trying to say that some of these moments that are kind of wrenching and stuff, like Kings Never Die, Higher, You're Never Over, Beautiful, some of these moments kind of, I mean, it's poignant just to be able to say that Eminem can channel this energy, but the concept behind it is just trying to say that the energy is just not conveyed in like a very good picture. It's kind of like if you were to have a donut that really tasted like you were to eat like a vanilla or chocolate donut that were to really taste like an asparagus. It's not quite as soothing as like a standard chocolate or vanilla donut. And I just think that that's kind of the concept where you have to look at it. And that's kind of what happens with songs like Beautiful and Kings Never Die and Higher, Cinderella Man, Headlights, Walk on Water, You're Never Over, The King and I. Just a lot of these are just the energy behind them and the elements of what they're trying to convey in the message could probably be cast over that much better if the augmentation of how the production worked was kind of more scaping to do it. And it just feels like every now and then on a lot, well, actually more often than that, more often than every now and then, Eminem says, fuck a good beat, fuck all that. We're just going to make something that connects with people. And I don't care if it's something that people can vibe to. And that's kind of, I mean, I know as a musician that you have to do that. But when you look at someone like Elton John, or Stevie Wonder or someone like that, at least the production that they did some of those, you know, overbearing and kind of up here, high road kind of moments, they at least were something that was melodic and kind of soothing and that kind of stuff. Just something that could actually, you know, you want to sing along to. But these just kind of feel like stoic kind of soldier anthems that don't really connect, and they just kind of have an unabashed, apathetic attitude, whether or not you like them or not. And it's kind of off-putting because, you know, you look at the gestures between this project, Eminem really chooses to go with more of like, you know, heartwarming and kind of wrenching moments as opposed to kind of connecting and just being affable and kind of having like some engaging and kind of charismatic personality. And that happens, I mean, the moments I do like, just to kind of say, it's not like every wrenching moment doesn't connect. I feel like Love the Way You Lie, Darkness, Farewell, Phenomenal, Spacebound, Not Afraid, some of these connect, Best Friend, but it just kind of depends upon what you're really looking for. I feel like it boils down to opinion, but you have to understand that the moments I said I didn't like, it's just kind of based upon the melody of how the music kind of works, just in terms of how to get that done. So it just kind of, it's the moments where it kind of boils down to saying, hey, fuck all that. This is about like pure emotion, I guess you could say, almost, where everything is just throwing caution to the wind, and I'm just going to do something and kind of act on that, where at least some of the other moments, they kind of have like a vibe towards it, as far as trying to say that it has some musical and kind of elemental kind of connection. That's just kind of the concept. So I'm going to give this album I'm gonna give this album me liking 18 out of 16. I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. Now, keep in mind, I could go in on this project for more and more and more and more and more if I really wanted to, but it's just, understand that it kind of boils down at this point to opinion, because there are going to be some people, just because all of the hits in one way or the other, just the songs that have gotten millions and millions of plays and hits and that type stuff are going to be on here. But at least to kind of say the ones that I connected with was over half, basically 6.5 is about 65%. But just to kind of say, like, it really, because Eminem is so large a personality, it just makes it difficult to really kind of define, I mean, I could be, yeah, it's just difficult to kind of define as far as trying to say these are the absolute hits when they've all collected like millions and millions of hits. But from what I caught, that's the way I went about saying some of these things, was just trying to say that more than enough of these were just, way too, like, I think it was just strange what Eminem was kind of aiming for in terms of like what he wanted to make as far as a connection, just to kind of be reminded. But for what it is, it works. I will say, like I said, the emotional prowess that this project has, I definitely think that most people who are more than just a regular fan of Eminem, it probably will kind of make you it'll make you kind of, it's just a very heartwarming kind of project, just to kind of see how that kind of works and stuff. So it should at least do that job of just making you reminisce and almost kind of be bittersweet, sad in a way, and that type stuff. But this is kind of the concept that when you look past that, the quality of this project, because of how many ups and downs that Eminem went through across the past 14 years, is really not that engaging. But regardless, I think, the connection that Eminem makes should be good. It's just kind of the fact that it really was kind of rickety roller coaster, and some of this just wasn't quite as like top notch as. And it's not to say it's bad, but it's just kind of like, you look after it and it's like, I don't know, it's just a continual standard complaint about it. But just to kind of suffice to say that most of it's kind of good. It's just kind of, it's going to boil down to opinion, and it's also going to boil down to like nostalgia. And I think a lot of those things have to do with it. But for what it is, in my opinion, it was decent and it's interesting. So, on a side note, I'll also give the social score like a 7, just because it did have some social moments. If you're really looking for like Eminem to kind of have like, I mean, if you're absolutely wanting like some turned up moments to go out and drink and party to and that type of stuff, it's not like this project doesn't have that, but it is kind of, I mean, I really feel like Eminem was trying to be like, this is him like dressed up in like a suit getting ready to meet the president or something like that. That's kind of the vibes that Eminem was kind of giving off. So, but I will say that like songs like Nat and Fast Lane and From the D to the LBC and Won't Back Down, Rap God, Godzilla in some cases, Crack a Bottle, Is This Love '09, Best or Survival, Darkness in some cases, No Love with Lil Wayne. There are a number of moments on here that have some pretty stellar social vibes about them, but it's just kind of, I mean, I think Eminem kind of had like a difference of what it's like. They're peppered in here, but you just have to kind of understand that a lot of ways I feel like it's more about the connection this time around. So just understand that.